There is something deeply tragic about watching a man beg for respect. You can see it in his eyes, the way they search for validation in every room he enters. You can hear it in his voice when he explains himself too much, justifies his decisions, pleads his case to people who have already made up their minds. In relationships, he overcompensates, chasing affection like a man dying of thirst. At work, he volunteers louder, works longer, desperately trying to prove his worth to people who barely notice. Among his peers, he laughs too hard at jokes that aren't funny, agrees too quickly with opinions he doesn't hold, morphs himself into whatever shape he thinks will finally earn him the acknowledgement he craves. But respect never comes. And with each attempt, with each plea, something inside him dies a little more. His dignity erodes. His sense of self becomes hollow. He is a man building his foundation on sand, on the shifting opinions of others, and he wonders why he feels so unstable, so empty, so unseen. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern men have forgotten. Respect is not something you can chase. It is not a prize you win through performance or persuasion. It is not granted by a committee or earned through desperation. True respect, the kind that runs deep and lasts, cannot be demanded or begged for. It must be commanded, and it is commanded through one thing alone: who you are when no one is watching. It is commanded through self-mastery, through composure under pressure, through virtue lived quietly and consistently. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled an empire, wrote in his private journal a line that cuts through to 1,000 years of noise: "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He did not write treatises defending his character. He did not seek approval from the Senate or validation from history. He simply lived according to his principles, and in doing so, he commanded respect without ever asking for it. Consider the modern man who enters a meeting and immediately begins speaking, filling every silence with his voice, needing everyone to know he is intelligent, capable, important. Now consider the man who enters the same room, sits quietly, observes, and when he finally speaks, the room falls silent because his words carry weight. The first man is performing. The second man is present. The first man seeks respect. The second man commands it. The difference is not in their talent or position. The difference is internal. The Stoic man has learned what most never will: that respect is a reflection of inner strength, not outer display. Seneca understood this when he wrote that a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. The Stoic does not crumble under disrespect or criticism. He does not react with anger or defensiveness. He absorbs it, examines it for truth, discards what is useless, and remains unmoved in his core. This is not weakness. This is power. The power of a man who knows who he is and does not need your agreement to confirm it. There is a quiet violence in begging for validation, a self-inflicted wound that many men carry without realizing it. When you seek respect from others, you hand them the keys to your peace. You make them the judge of your worth. You become a servant to their opinions, their moods, their biases. You sacrifice your masculine energy, that calm, centered force that comes from self-reliance and inner authority, and you replace it with anxiety, with the constant scanning of faces for approval, with the exhausting performance of trying to be enough for people who will never be satisfied. The Stoic rejects this entirely. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the greatest teachers of his age, taught that we control very little in this world, but we control everything that matters: our thoughts, our actions, our responses. He would ask his students, "Is it in your control what others think of you?" And when they answered no, he would say, "Then why do you waste your energy on it?" Many men confuse pride with self-respect, and in that confusion they lose both. Pride is fragile. It demands to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be praised. It reacts to every slight, defends every criticism, needs to be right in every argument. Pride is ego wearing a crown it did not earn. But Stoic self-respect is different. It is quiet, unshakable, rooted not in how others see you, but in how you see yourself when you are alone with your thoughts. It is the respect that comes from keeping your word when no one is checking, from doing the work even when you will receive no credit, from walking away from situations that compromise your values even when staying would be easier. This is the self-respect that Marcus Aurelius carried as emperor, the same self-respect that Epictetus carried as a slave. It had nothing to do with status and everything to do with character. There will always be people who disrespect you. They will underestimate you, dismiss you, speak over you, ignore your contributions. And in those moments, the untrained man reacts. He argues, defends, retaliates, needs to correct the record. But the Stoic maintains his calm, not because he is passive, but because he understands something fundamental. Their disrespect is not about him. It is about them, their insecurities, their need to diminish others to feel larger themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when you wake in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Did not write this with bitterness, but with clarity. He understood human nature, and he understood that the opinion of such people disconnected from virtue and wisdom, should hold no power over his inner peace. The Stoic knows his worth. It is not determined by the crowd. It is determined by his alignment with what is true, what is good, what is just. Real respect is commanded through self-control, through the discipline of emotional restraint, through the consistency of your actions over time. Anyone can be impressive for a day. Anyone can talk a good game, make promises, project confidence. But the Stoic man is the same today as he was yesterday and will be tomorrow. He does not shift with the weather of opinion. He does not perform differently depending on who is watching. He has built himself on principles that do not change: courage, justice, temperance, wisdom, and people feel this. They may not be able to articulate it, but they sense the solidity in him. They sense that he is not trying to impress them, and paradoxically, they are impressed. They sense that he does not need their approval, and paradoxically, they respect him more. Seneca wrote that a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. The Stoic does not waste energy worrying about what might happen, about whether people will respect him, about whether he will be liked or appreciated. He focuses on what he can control: his character, his effort, his response to adversity in the modern world. Men are told to be loud, to take up space, to dominate every conversation, to assert themselves aggressively. But the Stoic man knows that true strength does not announce itself. It does not need to. There is a power in silence, in letting your work speak, in allowing your character to reveal itself through your actions rather than your words. The man who constantly tells you how strong he is, how successful he is, how respected he is, reveals the opposite. He reveals his insecurity, his need for external confirmation. But the man who moves through the world with quiet purpose, who helps without needing credit, who leads without needing a title, who stands firm in his values without needing applause, that man commands respect. Not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. Think of Marcus Aurelius again. Writing by candlelight after long days of governing, fighting wars, managing betrayals. He did not write his meditations for publication. He wrote them for himself, reminders of how to live with integrity in a world full of chaos and corruption. He could have commanded respect through fear, through displays of imperial power. Instead, he commanded it through wisdom, through humility, through the example of a man who held ultimate power but remained a student of philosophy, who could have indulged every desire but chose discipline instead. His legacy is not his military victories or political achievements. His legacy is the example of a man who mastered himself first, and in doing so, earned the respect of generations who would never meet him. The Stoic path is not easy. It requires you to give up the shortcuts, the performances, the manipulations that so many rely on to feel important. It requires you to face the truth about yourself, to acknowledge your weaknesses without excuse, to commit to becoming better not for applause, but because it is the right thing to do. It requires you to develop the inner strength to stand alone if necessary, to be misunderstood, to be underestimated, and to remain committed to your principles regardless. Epictetus said that if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. The Stoic does not concern himself with managing his reputation. He concerns himself with being the kind of man whose reputation, whatever it may be, reflects reality. In the end, respect is not about others at all. It is about you. It is about whether you can look yourself in the mirror and respect the man looking back. It is about whether you kept your word today. Whether you did the difficult thing when no one was watching. Whether you responded to adversity with dignity or crumbled into reactivity. Whether you lived according to your values or compromised them for comfort or approval. The respect of others is simply a byproduct, a natural consequence of self-respect lived consistently over time. And if it never comes, if the world never acknowledges you, if you remain unseen and unappreciated, the Stoic remains unshaken. Because he knows that his worth was never theirs to determine. A Stoic never begs for respect. He does not need to. He has become the kind of man who does not need to ask for it. He has built himself into someone whose presence speaks louder than words, whose actions carry more weight than promises, whose character commands attention without demanding it. He walks through life with the quiet confidence of a man who has mastered the only thing that truly matters, himself. And in that mastery, in that alignment with virtue and truth, he finds something far more valuable than the fleeting approval of others. He finds peace. He finds freedom. He finds respect that cannot be taken away, because it was never given by anyone else. It was earned in the silence of his own discipline, forged in the fire of his own trials, and it belongs to him alone.